especially those who use the internet a lot.
I call Claire Curran.
Thanks, Mr Chair. I'd like to take a call in the committee stages of this bill. In part one, part one's talking about the principles that lie behind this bill, and it's important to take a minute to think about what they are, because they're about security of information, they're about privacy of individuals' information, and also about confidence, having confidence in the system. And as you know, we've discussed in this House a number of times, Labor supports this bill. We support the intent behind it. It's not of a majorly controversial bill, but what is controversial is that the adequacy of information management systems in government agencies, and about whether the public thinks that those systems are secure, whether the privacy of individuals' information is actually kept private, and whether there is public confidence in the system. And I put to you today in this House that I don't think we can have any confidence right now that right across the government agencies that there are adequate systems in place to ensure that those principles are being upheld. The bill actually talks about secure channels of information for individuals using the internet. It talks about accessing services from approved agencies, and it talks about containing minimal personal information. I think in the current context, all of those phrases should be ringing warning bells. And it certainly, and I think one of my colleagues actually tweeted today in relation to the government's management of the economy and jobs, and described it as an omni-shambles, which I thought was a very apt term, but actually I thought it was just as apt, if not more apt, in relation to this issue, which is essentially about the adequacy and the security of individuals, of citizens' private information in government agencies, and how that's being accessed. And that's what this bill is about. So I think in terms of providing a recipe for confidence in the ability of government to deliver a secure verification service of any kind, I think that, you know, today that's a bit of a joke. And I wonder how the government members can sit across there with a straight face and debate this bill while they've got enormous holes in the IT systems across at least 4 of their main agencies, which concern the privacy of New Zealanders' information. And I would also say that I think that the confidence of the public has been shaken, if not lost, in these systems. In defence of the bill, the service has been in place since December 2009, so it's not as if it's a completely new service that's being introduced, but it's so that people could authenticate their identities and their interactions with the Department of Internal Affairs, but in a very limited capacity. Now, this bill is going to expand the availability of that service to all members of the public and allow more agencies to use the service to identify their clients. And I think that is where the warning bells should currently be ringing until it can be demonstrated that the public of New Zealand can actually be reassured that those services, that the system is actually going to provide the security that's required. Which is why, Mr Chair, Labor introduced a members' bill into the ballot last week titled the Electronic Data Safety Bill, which goes to the very heart of this issue. And I know that other colleagues are going to reference some of the other agencies that have been affected, but recently, as we all know, a member of the public was able to download more than 7,000 documents from the Ministry of Social Development's network. And through the Work and Income self-serving service kiosks. And those documents included very sensitive information, such as medical invoices about children in the care of SIFs, personal information about people receiving benefits. Mr. Chair. The names of people being investigated for benefit fraud, the name of a person who had committed suicide, and pay rates for individual contractors employed by MSD. Now, those things are very serious. Previous breaches in other agencies, and we know they've occurred in IRD, we know they've occurred in ACC, and we know that they're occurring currently in the NovaPay system through the Ministry of Education. Previous breaches in other agencies have highlighted the need for a systematic inquiry into the adequacy of information management systems in all government agencies, which is what this bill seeks to address. So, by all means, let's put this bill through the House. But before we do that, let's have a bit of a look at the adequacy of information management systems across all government agencies so that the people of New Zealand can be reassured. And then let's put in place and let's make sure there is an adequate system for information management across all government agencies that have got robust protocols and ensure that it's resourced adequately with the correct level of skills. And that management system has a governance that transcends the individual agencies. And then let's look at bringing this particular bill through the House. Mr. Chair, I'd say that the big issue for us to be discussing right now is the culture. This is a culture issue around privacy and security in the government agencies, and is the responsibility of government to ensure that that culture is the right culture, to ensure that our the privacy and security of information can be assured. And so and that's what needs to be changed within the public sector if we're going to stop these sorts of things happening. So just going back to that MSD kiosk debacle, the thing is that we know that the report showed that the issue was known about back in 2009, and that people were reminded a number of times about it. The report that was commissioned was good, but then, we need to be assured that it's actually going to take note of all the recommendations that have been made and of all of the security-related issues that have been identified. The issues that were identified in 2009 were paid lip service to, essentially, and that there was still pressed ahead with the kiosks. They called the network issues an acceptable risk. But if there was proper IT governance and accountability, it just simply wouldn't have happened. And that accountability and governance needs to happen at the highest possible levels. And that project wouldn't have progressed until it had been signed off by somebody senior who was an accountable professional and who could make damn sure that there was a proper elevation structure in place that didn't proceed with those issues unresolved. And that is what is the problem. And I think if we're looking at introducing and widening another system, which is what we're debating today, then where is the accountability on it? And where is the accountability on the other side of the House around all of these issues at the highest possible level, not just in one agency, but across all of those agencies? It's been put to me, Mr. Chair, by the industry that, as with every other profession and vocation, that there is professional accountability, and that it's imperative that the government is involved in ensuring that there's a minimum level of experience, education and ethics for senior professionals who are in a position to sign off major projects and then be held professionally accountable for those standards in the same way as in every other field. So I'd like to put it to you today that this bill, while it is supported by Labor, that it is raising warning bells again around another system that's being put in place without the appropriate measures behind this this system that's being widened, that in at least 4 major agencies across this government there are serious systemic problems and that they need to be addressed.
I call Chris Ockenvold.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it is a pleasure and indeed a privilege to